Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things. Now today I'm going to do the mid-year book tag or the mid-year freak-out tag. I seem to hear it called different things on different people's videos. I don't think that I've been tagging this, although I am a bit behind on booktube videos, so I might have been, but this tag has been going around a lot lately. It is kind of a summary of how your year of reading is going, and I have done this before in previous years. I think I did it 2 years ago. I don't think I did it last year, so I thought I would do it this year to let you know how my reading is going, etc. So yes, let's get on with the questions. Question number one is, what's the best book you've read so far in 2017? Which for me is probably North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, but this is a reread for me. This is probably the 5th or 6th time I've read it, and I just loved it this time, like more than ever before. I reread this for my Not So Hypothetical Victorian Literature course videos, and I compared it with Hard Times and how these books present industrialisation, and it was so good, and it was so amazing. I gushed about it a lot on this channel, but I said, having read this for the 5th or 6th time, that I now consider this my second favourite book ever after Our Mutual Friend, because I loved it so much, and it's absolutely wonderful and absolutely incredible. It's about a young Victorian woman who moves from a very rural setting where her father has been a clergyman to a very small hamlet to the big manufacturing town of Milton in the north of England, and everything that happens from there. It's Pride and Prejudice and factories, it's Pride and Prejudice with amazing social commentary and industrialisation and just like everything I want in a book. If I had to pick the best book I've read so far this year that wasn't a reread, it would probably be The Small House at Allington by Anthony Trollope, which is the 5th book in his Buster series, which I just absolutely loved and thought was incredible. It's about two sisters and their various romantic entanglements, and it was just one of the best things I've ever read, just absolutely brilliant. And then the other contender I think for the best book I've read so far this year might be Smoked Meat by Rowena McDonald, which is a short story collection that I read fairly near the beginning of this year, but this is a short story collection of interconnected short stories with various characters that crop up in different stories, and it's all set in the city of Montreal, where I think the author lived for a little while, and the author very kindly sent me a copy of this for review because I'd mentioned a short story of hers from a collection of various writers, a collection all inspired by the Brontes called The Red Room, and I loved her story in that, and I mentioned it on this channel, so she sent me this book for review. It really blew me away, and it's incredible writing, just like the wonderful realism, the everyday people's lives that I love. A lot of it is set in cafes, which is like my favourite thing. Give me a story set in a cafe any day. It was just great. It was so great. I highly recommend. Beautifully written. If you like realist fiction and realist short stories, and if you like interconnected short stories, which are my favourite thing, then this is definitely one to read. Question 2 is the best sequel you've read so far in 2017. I don't read that many series, but I guess if I had to pick a best sequel, it would be, again, The Small House at Allington by Anthony Trollope, as that is the 5th book in the series. Although they're kind of a loose series, like most of the characters in The Small House at Allington you haven't encountered before in the Barchester series. They're all set in the same place, and there are a few characters that cross over between the different novels, but they're not kind of direct consecutive sequels. So there are only actually a few characters that crop up in The Small House at Allington that you have met before, and certainly none of the main characters you've met before, so it doesn't really feel like a sequel, but I guess in a way it is, and that would be the best one I've read this year. Question 3 is, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but you'd like to? So I have 2 here. One is The Threat Level Remains Severe by Rowena McDonald, so the author who wrote the short story collection Smoked Meat. This is her first novel, and I'm not sure if it's out yet because it's due to come out in July, and she sent me a review copy which I just haven't had the chance to read yet. I do really want to read this because I love that short story collection so much, and this sounds very interesting, a bit political, and just, yeah, it sounds really good. And then the other new release that I would really like to read quite soon is this, which is Reservoir 13 by John Mcgregor. And as I have mentioned a few times on this channel before, John Mcgregor is one of my favourite living authors. I was really excited for this, and I'm still excited for this in a way, but I've been putting it off and feeling a bit apprehensive about it. As I spoke about in a video I made quite recently, which I'll link down below, I've recently been enjoying literary fiction, especially like really literary fiction, less at the moment. And John Mcgregor is like the most literary of my favourite authors, and I'm really worried that I might have gone off him, and I'm like really scared to read this. But I do love him. Like, I love If Nobody Speaks of Remarkable Things so much that I can't believe that I won't like him. I can't believe that will have happened. So yeah, I will read this. I will try and read this soon, but I'm also feeling a bit like apprehensive and worried that I'm not going to like it. But maybe it will just rekindle my love for him forever because I do like him. So yes, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Question 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of this year. Definitely The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman, because I love his dark materials a lot. I think they are brilliant and wonderfully written, and the world is fantastic, and he's such a brilliant writer. So I'm so excited for The Book of Dust. I'm so excited for more set in that wonderful world. I'm so excited. Question 5, the biggest disappointment so far this year. So There are two that come to mind. One is My Name is Lucy Barton by Elizabeth Strout. I didn't hate this book, like I quite enjoyed it, but I think because I had loved Olive Kitteridge by her so much, and Olive Kitteridge is so good, I really think I thought I would like My Name is Lucy Barton a lot more than I did, and it was just like a kind of medium okay read. I found the writing style a bit weird. I didn't enjoy her first person prose as much as I'd enjoyed her third person prose in Olive Kitteridge, so that I was a little bit disappointed with. And then the other one I suppose would be The Tidal Zone by Sarah Moss, which I didn't love. I made a review of that, so I'll link that down below, but because it had obviously got so much hype and so many people really enjoyed it, and because I did really enjoy the first like 50 pages and then it kind of went downhill, so I feel like that was a bit of a disappointment as well. Question 6, what was your biggest surprise? For that I'm going to say The Mystery of Mrs. Blencarrow by Mrs. Oliphant. So it wasn't that I was not expecting to enjoy this. I'd heard about Margaret Oliphant before. She was one of the best-selling authors during the Victorian period. She wrote like 100 books, and yet most of her books are out of print now. She's not very well regarded. She's never on any like Victorian literature course, and she's not very well known at all. And she was quite trashy during the Victorian period. Like, she wasn't considered kind of highbrow literature. She was considered quite like lowbrow Victorian literature. So I guess I was kind of expecting the two novellas in this to be like fun, but a bit silly, a bit melodramatic, a bit over the top, and a bit kind of trashy, I guess. But actually they were both brilliant, and they were both very complicated and dealt with like really, really interesting, wonderful, fascinating themes to do with like what a marriage is, and to do with women's position in society and how people treat them, and to do with like how society views different people within Victorian society, and they were just great. I enjoyed them more than I expected to, and they also made me think a lot more than I expected them to. Question 7, favourite new author, debut or new to you? So quite a few authors I've been enjoying a lot for the first time this year. One is Robert Harris, who wrote the Cicero series. I read the first one, Imperium, back in January. It's about kind of political intrigue in ancient Rome, and it follows Cicero, so it's historical and it's based sort of loosely on the historical facts with kind of the gaps filled in, and it was absolutely brilliant. I'm listening to Lustrum, the second one, on audiobook at the moment. I'm really, really thoroughly enjoying it. Another new to me author that I'm hoping to pick up more from in the future would be Anita Bruckner. I loved A Start in Life, and she's written a lot of books, and I know my mum has a lot of them on her shelves back at my parents' house, so I might try and go and pick up some more Anita Bruckner and borrow some from her, because she was absolutely brilliant and I really, really love this book. And then also Margaret Oliphant, who I mentioned recently, because this was absolutely incredible and has really pushed me to want to pick up some more Margaret Oliphant in the future, so hopefully later on this year I will read some more by her. Question 8, newish fictional crush. All of my literary love is forever reserved for John Thornton from North and South, so not new, but yes. Question 9, newest favourite character. That has to be Johnny Eames from The Small House at Allington by Anthony Trollope, because I just adore him. I just love him, and he's wonderful because the way Trollope writes him is that you don't always think he's doing the right thing, and sometimes he behaves badly, and sometimes he's silly, and sometimes you can understand why characters don't always warm to him, but he also means so well, and he's so good at heart, and he's so lovely, and he's so charming, and he grows and develops so much over the course of the book. And in many ways, though there's many things you can read The Small House at Allington as, I think you can read it as a kind of coming of age story for John Eames, and that makes me really, really, really happy. Question 10, a book that made you cry. I think the books that made me cry the most were A Small House at Allington, although I was quite restrained with that because I was reading it on a plane. Like, I finished reading it on an aeroplane, and I didn't really want to sit there and sob because I thought the person next to me would give me weird looks. And then the other book that made me cry was a book called Last Fling by Fuji, which is a short story collection, absolutely brilliant, one of the best things I've read this year. I borrowed it from my mum, so it's back with her at the moment, but it was wonderful, and the final story in the book just made me cry a lot, and I just found it incredibly moving. I think partly because the two main characters in it are two elderly ladies who just reminded me so much of my two great aunts, so it gave me such like a personal connection with the story, and that whole collection was just absolutely incredible, and I would highly, highly recommend it. I really, really need to read some more Fuji. Question 11, a book that made you happy. For this I'm going to say Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, because I reread it this year for the first time in, I guess, 5 years, probably. I think the last time I read it had been in my first year at university, so yeah, 5 or 6 years, and it was so lovely, it was so wonderful. I love this book so much. It's like, I mentioned before, I think this is like the book that got me into Victorian literature, and it's just so beautiful and so wonderful and warms my heart, and yeah, made me happy, and just with all the nostalgia and joy, and yes, definitely this. Question 12, what's your favourite book to film adaptation you've seen this year? I really haven't seen that many this year, but I would probably say A Monster Calls, which was very, very good. I thought the film was excellent, except for like the last minute, and I don't know why they had like a weird epilogue thing that they really, really didn't need, and it would have been much better without it, but that's beside the point. I really enjoyed it in general. I thought it was very well done, the art style was lovely, and the acting was brilliant. It was very emotional and very, very good, and yes, I would recommend it. Question 13, your favourite video you have done this year. So there are quite a lot of videos I've really enjoyed making. I've massively loved doing the not so hypothetical Victorian literature course videos that I've done so far. The one on industrialisation in North and South and Hard Times, and the general introduction one on Jane Eyre and Great Expectations. They were so much fun to make, and it was so lovely to reread those books that I love and talk about them in that way. I also loved doing 2 weeks of Thomas Hardy because I haven't done an author week for ages, and it was really nice to just go through all of Thomas Hardy's novels and talk about them in turn and talk about how much I love them and how much sometimes they irritate me, but just how wonderful an author Hardy was. That was really nice. Another video I loved making this year, which was massively fun to make and I just thoroughly enjoyed doing, was my video called J.K. Rowling versus Charles Dickens, where I talked about why J.K. Rowling and Dickens are more similar than you might think. And maybe that's my favourite video I've made so far this year, because I've been like planning it for about a year and a half, like ever since I started rereading Harry Potter, and I managed to finally make it. Question 14, what's the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year? That will probably be this lovely vintage edition of War and Peace, which Nick got me for my birthday. I think it's really lovely. I really like these vintage like floral editions. Like, it feels like really nice, pretty, ornate wallpaper, and I really like the spine as well. The spine's really lovely, and it does have very good end papers as well, and it's nice to have so floppy a paperback for such a gigantic book. Question 15, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? There are many books I would like to read by the end of the year, and we will see how it goes and all of that. I would like to finish War and Peace, which I will, because I've started it now. I'm 86 pages in, and today when I'm filming this is the 9th of July, so as you can tell I am not on track with the read-along that's being hosted by Anne from Beyond the Pages and Yamini from The Skeptical Reader. I'm quite far behind. I will finish it, and once I've finished it I will go back and watch all the live shows and everything that Yamini and Anne showed, all the videos they've been making about War and Peace, which I do think will be nice. Because I went away on holiday in June, I didn't start it in June, I started it in July, and I thought, oh, I'll just read it twice the speed and just get through it all in July, which I think was not that feasible. So what I'm more likely to do is finish it in like August probably. But yeah, still, I'm really enjoying it, so we shall see how that goes. I'd also like to read Reservoir 13 and The Threat Level Remains Severe, as I've already mentioned. I also need to read The Essex Serpents by Sarah Perry, which Nick gave me for Christmas. I really want to read this. I don't know why I haven't yet. I feel like it may be the case of one of those books that I really think I will love. Like, I really think I'll love this, and so I'm a bit like nervous to read it. Everything everyone says about it sounds like it ticks all of my boxes. I think I'll adore this, so I kind of like don't want to read it just in case I don't, but I will. I should read this quite soon. Hopefully I'll get to this summer. The Novice by Trudy Canavan is also fairly high up my list. I read the first one in this series about a year ago now, and this is the second one, so I kind of would like to read this before I forget everything that happened in the first. I also should read The Crimson Petal and the White by Michelle Faber, which I keep on like saying I'm about to read and then not being about to read. And this is another one, like The Essex Serpent, I think I'm going to love so much. So why haven't I read it yet? Maybe I need to do like after Victorian October, which hopefully will also happen in October, maybe I need to do like a Victoriana month. Maybe I need to do a month where I read all the books I own set in the Victorian period, which weren't written in the Victorian period, because there are so many of them that I think I will really love. Maybe I'll do that at some point. Maybe I'll assign myself a month for that. Anyway, so yes, those are all the questions in the mid-year tag. I don't think I'm going to tag anyone because I wasn't tagged and because I feel like lots of people have already done this. It's around enough that I feel like if you want to do it, you can just do it and no one's going to mind. So yes, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.